So today I'll be addressing Charlie Kirk crushes reparations once and for all. I'm going to go through each point that he makes and dissect them one by one. And let's go.
Had to get up on the mic. Oh, mic check, 1 2 1 2. All right, cool. Make sure everybody can hear me. What's going on, man? Doing all right. Welcome to Knoxville. I'm up here for one purpose. My buddy is a friend of yours. He lives up in White Pine, and he wants me to have this discussion with you because me and him had this discussion this weekend. What are your thoughts about reparations for Black people specifically, and like Black Americans specifically? What is your
Very much against.
Very much against. Can I ask why?
Well, first and foremost, I don't believe that we should ever pay monetary damages to people where nothing bad happened to them, just because they are related to a group of people where something bad happened to them.
Okay. So
because it separates the idea. Let me just finish, and then I'll throw it back to you.
Absolutely.
Our justice system, when properly understood, is about individuals receiving justice, not tribes or groups receiving justice.
Okay.
All right, we're going to see if America agrees. Reparations given in the U.S. Yes, the U.S. has provided reparations or compensation in various forms to specific groups for the past injustices, including Japanese Americans interned during World War II, victims of the Tuskegee syphilis study, and Native American tribes affected by land mismanagement. Then you can go through the list where it says examples of reparations in the U.S. Japanese American internment, where they give $20,000 of payments to survivors of World War II. The Tuskegee syphilis study, $10 million settlement in 1974 for African American men who were denied treatment for syphilis during the study. Native American tribes, 17 Native American tribes settled lawsuits resolving claims of over mismanagement of tribal lands, resources, and money. Eugenics programs. States like North Carolina and Virginia provided payments to survivors of forced sterilization programs implemented under the state's eugenics policies. Rosewood Massacre. We have the Chicago police torture also, but the Rosewood Massacre, Florida provided a reparations package for victims and survivors of the racially motivated Rosewood Massacre in 1923. Evanston, Illinois, the city established a reparations program in 2021 to address housing discrimination faced by its Black residents and their descendants. Harvard University, $100 million funds to address its historical connection to slavery, offering preferred admission to descendants of enslaved and working at the university. But reparations for slavery. While there is a long-term proposal for reparations for the descendants of enslaved people, a comprehensive federal program has not been implemented. Okay, so that's the first point Charlie made. It seems like America will seem to disagree, because when it comes to the Native American tribes, because you say he's against groups, I guess America will disagree with that point. So let's continue.
That just because I am a Black man, I do not speak for all Black people. So I'm just this.
I like this guy.
Had to put that out there. Just because I'm a Black man, I don't speak for all Black people. Had to get validation from the whites, of course.
Give it up for him.
Just want to say that for the record. I'm speaking for myself. All right. So definitely hear you on that. But even for me, when it comes to reparations, for me personally, I don't believe that it should be a check. I think that reparations can look like many different things, whether it's like investment in institutions.
Notice he has on a shirt that says "Hold My Beer," and is that Who's that? George Washington? Is that who's on the shirt? Okay. Interesting.
More like, better schools, hospitals, all that kind of stuff. So my question to you is so since you are against reparations, would you say that we should be would you be for outlawing inherited wealth? Does that make sense?
Well, I'm not for outlawing that. Those are two different things.
Can I explain my point though? All right, so my point to that is that, so what I hear for the argument against reparations is that, Black people today, obviously, we weren't there, for slavery, segregation, all of that kind of stuff. So we've done nothing to deserve that, because all the people who should have gotten it, actually not even probably, who should have gotten it, are, either long gone or whatever. Now, there's still some who are still with us today, but that's a conversation for another day. But my point is that, so inheritance and inherited wealth is something that, the great-grandfather, whatever, is passed down. Homeboy who is here today did nothing to deserve that multi-billion-dollar business, but he gets it because of his bloodline, correct? Is that how it... that's how inheritance works, right?
Yeah, no, Bronny James is going to get $1 billion.
Right, yeah.
So it's interesting he uses Bronny James, which is like a 1 in a million, 1 in a billion, 1 in a trillion chance. That's a very interesting point that he's made. But let's go to his point, the man's point about the inheritance received. Let's go to that point. This is a video of a white woman explaining how her grandfather from some years ago was able to basically pay off her family's debt because of the inheritance that they received from him buying a house for $100,000 that translated into $1 million after it was sold. So let's hear what she has to say.
There's no racism anymore. Everyone's equal. Obviously don't understand what systematic means. And I'm going to give an anecdotal story just to really hit this on the head. I am white, and on both sides of my family, we do not have any massive generational wealth. My mom's father is the only one of my 4 grandparents who we got any sort of generational wealth inherited from. And 99% of the wealth that we inherited from my grandfather was from selling his house. My grandfather was born in 1926 in rural North Carolina, and he was a 6'3" white man with blue eyes. And other than being white, my grandfather didn't have that many privileges. He was one of like 7 children. His mom didn't even get to high school level education, and his dad never went to college. They were not privileged in most other ways that we define privilege, but he was a white male in a very, very racist country. What his whiteness allowed him to do was work his way through college. At the time, there were colleges that weren't accepting black people, and he was accepted to college as long as he could pay for it. And he ended up getting a law degree and becoming very successful, and again, never hoarded any significant wealth, but bought a house outside of Washington, D.C. in the 50s in a neighborhood that was redlined. And actually my mom, who was born in the 60s, remembers in the 70s when the first black family moved into their neighborhood, because it had literally been sectioned off and realtors would not sell to black families. And my mom, who is 58 years old, went to a year of segregated school. So for all of you saying, it was so long ago, everyone has equal rights now, get over it. My mom remembers when the first black student joined her class in the 70s in Alexandria, Virginia. In 2015, my grandfather died, and we sold his house that he bought for around $100,000 in the 50s, and we sold it for $1 million. That money was divided among his children, and my family was able to get out of a lot of debt, and it completely reset my ability to go to private versus public school, my ability to afford tutors, my ability to become the educated person that I am. And it was all really because I have a white grandfather. Let me finish. Had my grandfather been black and had all of the other skills and background that he had, he couldn't have gone to the schools that he went to, he wouldn't have been hired in the jobs that he was, and he couldn't have bought the house that he did, that, 65 years later, put his family out of debt.
So I'm sure y'all heard what she said about her grandfather basically paying off her entire family's debt, and was also responsible for the reason why she was able to go to college. So this adds to the point of history affects today. And the fact that her white grandfather was able to have opportunities and access to getting a job and working and being able to purchase property affects her family till today, which on the inverse means that black people whose family grew up during these times was not able to get jobs and to purchase land, which is why the black community is currently still more poor compared to white people in general. So that's an interesting point as well. Let's continue with Kirk.
Yeah, sorry. Great example. So what I'm saying is that what I'm trying to say is that I believe that reparations in and of itself, one, I don't think that the argument is formed right, and 2, I believe that it's kind of a reverse inheritance, if that makes sense, where it's yes, black people's, like me personally, yes, I did not have to suffer through Jim Crow, slavery, or whatever, but all those choices that were made in those times have gotten necessarily me to where I'm at now.
Got it. So let me tell you where.
Yes, that's exactly the point. So that's why there needs to be repair done. And don't ask where. I don't know why he's asking like he's not confident. Right? Yes. Be confident in what you're saying. Come on, bro.
We have a difference of opinion.
Okay, absolutely.
Okay? Absolutely. So we as conservatives tend to underemphasize this idea of many legacies of suffering. Mm-hmm. Whereas people on the left, not saying you're on the left, but the other perspective.
Definitely not.
No, for sure. But that's fine. No, that's fine. Let's just say the other side of the argument tend to emphasize that you are stuck because of something that happened to you many generations prior. Absolutely. We believe, absent very unique circumstances.
Well, you talking about we're stuck. Even if we're not stuck, the point is it's harder to progress. And if you disagree that it's harder to progress, Kirk, well, you can't disagree anymore. If you disagree with that point, then let's take all the inheritance and everything that every white person in this country who has received inheritance from their grandparents due to the wealth that they accumulated during slavery or even Jim Crow era or any of those times. Let's take all their wealth away, all of it, their house that they own, let's burn it down, just take it, all the money in their bank account, take it away, their parents' money, take it all away, and then have them fend for themselves at square zero inside of a broke down community that doesn't offer a good standard of living. Put them into those communities and let's see how many of white people strive, since you don't think that it should, it matters.
Stances in the United States of America, that is almost never true. For example, we think every individual should be judged by their own actions, their own character, and their agency. Now let's play this out.
That has never been true in this country. For example, let's go to the exoneration rates. All right, so this is the website michiganlaw.edu. Black people in the United States are 7 times more likely than whites to be falsely convicted of serious crimes, more likely to be targets of police misconduct, and spend longer in prison before being exonerated, according to a report released today by the National Register of Exonerations. Black people represent 13.6% of the population, but account for 53% of 3,200 exonerations in the registry of August 8, 2022. National criminal justice statistics are not complete or accurate enough to permit systemic comparisons of Latinos, Asian Americans, Indigenous, and others. The study, which analyzes exoneration for murder, sexual assault, and drug crimes in 1989, shows alarming racial disparities, especially for drug crime exonerations.
You're acting as if, not you, but let's say the argument, because you're coming after this in a great way, there's been like no money sent Black America the last 60 years. We have spent over $25 trillion on Black America in 60 years, and Black America's poorer than before we started. We're talking about Medicaid, food stamps, we're talking about schools, public housing. The issue is not the amount of money. The more money we've spent on this, we've seen the downfall of the Black family. Just some numbers super quick. Is that in 1994, right before the passage of the Civil Rights Act, 75% of Black youth had a dad around. Now it's 25%. So only 25%. So 1 in 4 kids have a dad around. Black dads are no longer a big part of young kids' life. It's a very big problem that has huge ramifications.
All right, it's a big problem that has huge ramifications. Let's see. All right, welfare and Black dads' history. All right, let's skip down. Exclusion from New Deal programs. The Social Security Act of 1935, a New Deal program, was designed to lessen the impact of Great Depression, but Black Americans were largely excluded due to racist implementation and political compromises. The man in the house rule. In the 1950s and early 1960s, this was implemented, restricting benefits to 2-parent households and forcing many Black fathers to leave their homes to enable their families to receive essential financial assistance. Now, with that being said, history plays a part in the present, and a lot of this also has ramifications that go down to not having a dad. Also creates a spiraling effect of not having a dad for the future people. So if you didn't have a dad, you probably are going to be like your father or whatever went down. Just it has an effect based on basically for the future of your household practices. I'm tired.
Finally, on the reparations argument, that comes into just more like concrete questions. Where do you draw the line? Who defines it? And also, why would you tax, for example, somebody like me? My ancestors fought on the Union side of the Civil War, so I got to go pay more money, even though my ancestors did the right thing. No offense if you guys fought for the Confederacy. That's not trying to, drum up any, it's all good. We're all Americans now. I'm not. Why should I have to then go pay for something that my ancestors did correctly? Finally, it's like, how do you prove it? Prove it, like, This is not your argument, but it's a hilarious contradiction. The very same people who tell you that voter ID is racist want all of a sudden Black America to prove that they're the descendants of slaves 7 generations ago. Like, let me go get my paperwork.
Well, racially profiling people is completely different than someone voluntarily giving you their documents so that they can receive reparations. Okay.
Together. I thought it's racist to ask people for their paperwork. Anyway, the whole thing's crazy.
Oh, yeah.
But here's the more important thing that I think we can agree on.
Okay.
That we should have a opportunity colorblind compact.
Mm-hmm.
We need to have school choice in this country so kids can go to better schools and have more mobility. Number 2, reconstitute the Black family. And finally, this is one that you might agree on because you're not a liberal, is that we need to no longer import foreigners that are going to undercut the wages of workers of all races.
Okay, let's see what Donald Trump has to say about that.
Peter?
Thank you, President Trump. I have 2. First, on immigration. What made you change your mind about targeting in California farmers and people in the hotel and leisure business?
Well, we're not targeting. In fact, if you look today, I put out a statement today about farmers. Our farmers are being hurt badly by, they have very good workers. They've worked for them for 20 years. They're not citizens, but they've turned out to be, great. And we're going to have to do something about that. We can't take farmers and take all their people and send them back because they don't have maybe what they're supposed to have, maybe not. And you know what's going to happen and what is happening? They get rid of some of the people because, you go into a farm and you look and people they've been there for 20, 25 years and they've worked great and the owner of the farm loves them and everything else. And then you're supposed to throw them out. And you know what happens? They end up hiring the people, the criminals that have come in, the murderers from prisons and everything else. So
so instead of, the murderers and the criminals that he's referring to is obviously Black people because, that's how these people use coded language. And they're used because it's exploited the 13th Amendment. But the reason why they like to use immigrants is because they can pay them very, 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 very low wages. So it's interesting. He's only against quote unquote immigration when it doesn't benefit them. But when it does benefit them, say they're farmers and all these other people in hotels, then all of a sudden, hey, hold up. Let's not deport you guys. Interesting.
We're going to have an order on that pretty soon, I think. We can't do that to our farmers and leisure too, hotels. We're going to have to use a lot of common sense on that.
That's interesting that Trump daddy would disagree with you, Kirk. But okay, let's continue.
Especially Black Americans.
I agree.
And so what we've done is we imported Nicaraguans and Guatemalans to come to
Yeah, because he gives a fuck, right? Yeah.
take low-wage labor, and we didn't want to pay our own Americans those jobs. So final thoughts on those points.
Also, great points. I would say that I am with you for the idea of a colorblind society. I think it's a bit of a farce to say that colorblind society is something we should aspire to, but I think it's a farce to think that it doesn't exist, that race doesn't play a factor.
I totally agree.
Okay, and so
I will say it plays far less of a factor 10 years ago. It's playing more of a factor today.
Yes, I agree.
In a negative way.
Yes, I 100%. I mean, I think you had mentioned something about DEI.
So racism affects today worse than 10 years ago. Does that not contradict your point? Okay.
Earlier, and I was like, for sure, the way I agree with DEI in principle, but I think the way it's been instituted by our government and all the other institutions is completely wrong. So, because for me, it's not about seeing color; it's how you treat color. Does that make sense?
Everyone's going to see color. And
yeah, exactly,
you're right.
Yeah,
and so it's an ideal that is admirable, being colorblind.
Right.
The problem we were promised with the Civil Rights Act, we were promised a colorblind society. Mm. We now have a color-obsessed society.
A color-obsessed society, meaning that the society still decides to point out and call out the racial inequalities that are faced by people who are of color, quote unquote. I'm specifically referring to Black people. But yes, let's talk about people of color in general. This affects all the people who are complaining, quote unquote complaining, which is just an acknowledgement. But since you don't want to hear the facts because it shakes your worldview of whatever you believe in, you do not want them to speak on it because you want to keep the racism going that you know goes on in this society.
And it's a breakdown of that promise. Instead, the country I grew up in, at least, was like, yeah, you're black, but it doesn't matter. It's not the most important thing. Instead, it's, are you
Police exonerations and arrests would disagree.
a good person? How do you act? How do you treat other people? Are you a Christian? Like, what is your worldview? I want to get back to that. Of course, we're still going to see differences, but I want to de-emphasize them to a place where we look at each other as fellow human beings and fellow American citizens. Thank you so much,
Absolutely
man.
not.
Appreciate it.
The same man who constantly talks about DEI and he does not want a black pilot, meanwhile DEI actually benefits white women primarily, but he's always talking about, hey, I don't want a black pilot because, you know, hey, they're not going to be qualified, which is not how that works. But anyways, I'm going to wrap that up. My first video is kind of choppy, clunky. I got to sharpen up, obviously, but yeah, that's just my breakdown and dissecting each point.